Okay, so now we're going to take a look at what is called leveling over allocated resources, starting on page 134 in your textbook. So this is a way that we can use the tools within project to relieve over allocation problems within our project. All I did was I went to the resource sheet using the more views, went to resource sheet, apply, and the leveling Gantt is still popped up at the bottom. And I don't think we need that for now. So we're in the View tab, you can just unclick the Details checkbox and that will make it go away. So now we've got our whole list of our resources, and obviously we still have some over allocation problems with Brad, Jim, Florian, Don Funk, and the dancers. Somewhere in this project, they are assigned to too much work. So we're gonna look at how we can fix that. We are going to go to the Resource tab and the Resource ribbon up here in our project. And we're going to go to the leveling area here, the level section, and go to leveling options. So once we click that open, we get this sort of menu of what we can do in terms of resource leveling. Under leveling calculations, we are going to do manual, and instead of letting project do it itself, we want more control over it. So we're going to select manual, and we want to look for over allocations on a day-to-day basis, because that's where most of our problems are, is that it's just certain, maybe one day, a couple of days, things are over allocated. If you wanted to, if most people get paid on a weekly basis, we can do it week by week as well. And it just kind of depends on the nature of how you pay people and what you consider normal for your workplace. If you really want to control and make sure nobody is working more than 8 hours a day, you would do a day-to-day basis. But if it's okay for you, if one day somebody is working 12 hours, or I should say 10 hours, and the next day that they're working 6 hours within a week. So as long as it works out to 40 hours a week, if you're okay with that, you would do it by a week by week basis. But for our example here, we're going to do a day by day basis. And we want to make sure that clear leveling values before leveling is checked on. And then under the range, we want to level the entire project. For some situations, you might only want to level during certain times, but for us, we're going to level the entire project. And then down here, leveling order is going to remain standard. We're just going to keep it that way, and we want to make sure that the level only within available slack is unchecked. We want to keep leveling can adjust individual assignments on a task checked, and create splits in remaining work checked. So this is going to allow project to, remember when we split a task last week, or maybe 2 weeks ago? I think it was 2 weeks ago. Remember that when we split a task where we just basically took a day or two as a break? Keeping this checked will enable project to basically, if somebody is over allocated just for one day, take a break from one of the tasks and not work on it that day, and then come back to it the next day when they're not over allocated anymore, which seems like a pretty smart way to kind of manage your resources, right? And that's kind of naturally what you would do in real life, right? It would be like, okay, clearly you can't work on all of this today, just focus on the one project for today.
Right.
And we're going to keep these other two cleared down here too. Okay. So it should look like the chart on, or the screenshot on page 135. And then we're going to click Level All. So some of our stuff got cleared off. You will recall that Brad Sutton and Jim Kim, excuse me, were over allocated and now they're not. So project basically automated the process of figuring out who should be working on what during those times. And when that process went through, it was able to totally resolve those over allocation problems that Brad and Jim had. Of course, it didn't totally fix everything, but it did fix those two. So we want to go back to that leveling Gantt, which is what we had partially open before, because we still want to check out what these other issues are. So we're going to go to the little views drop down and go to leveling Gantt. And we want to go down to the first, well, not the first, the second. We're going to go down to task 60. So click that open, and now we can see that there's basically 2 bars for every one of these tasks. I'm just going to make it a little bit bigger. There's like a gray bar and a blue bar. The gray bar, well, they call it a tan bar in the book. It looks gray to me. Represents the pre-leveled task, and then the light blue bottom bar represents the leveled task. The effect that leveling had on the finish date was to extend it by about 3 days. And you can see all the values for any task by pointing to the desired tan bar. I think we have the wrong, I feel like we have the wrong task. Here is a better example. I think the book has a misprint. It said task 60, but we really want to look at like 65 and 66 and 67. Down here, you can see where the adjustments have been made. So the video editing is fine, and it's like the same no matter if you're looking at the tan bar or the blue bar. But if you look at the next one, log audio tracks by scene, it created a split, and that's the new task is in the blue section. So this is how they fixed the over allocation problem, was by creating a split so that somebody wasn't over allocated when they were working on both of those tasks. So the tan bar is just there as a frame of reference to say like, well, if we hadn't done the leveling, this is where it would have been. But now the blue one is what it's actually scheduling subsequent tasks after. So same thing here with the rough edit video paper. Originally, it was supposed to start on, the pre-leveled start was the 28th of June, and now the leveled version obviously starts on the 30th of June because it's waiting until that predecessor task, log audio tracks by scene, is done. So do you see that? I know it's kind of complicated.
Yeah, I see it.
Makes sense to you?
Yep.
It's just showing you in the gray/tan. This is what it would have been like if we didn't level it. And then in the blue, it's showing you like, okay, this is the schedule we're going off now post leveling. And this is, you know, so you have all the information if you want to switch back to something.
So it's just giving you all of that information that you previously had, so then you can be like, this is what we had, this is what we have now. And if you want to, you can always go back a little bit.
Yep.
But then you know not to go back too far, right?
Yeah, basically. It's like you can kind of adjust from there and kind of figure things out if you want to. I'm seeing if there's any other good examples up here. But if you go back far enough, like these are all the same, right? Like I'm just picking like, you know, task 50, 51. If those bars are the same, that means that there wasn't any over allocations that were fixed by leveling in those tasks. There wasn't anything that project could do within the parameters that we gave it for the leveling in order to fix, because there's still some sort of an over allocation. And obviously on task 51, if we go to try to figure that out, I think it's that Don Funk is over allocated for that particular part of the video shoot. So you could kind of just try to figure that out by looking at what all the resources were for that and be like, oh, okay, maybe we have to go back and do something different for that. And if you need to go back, you can always go back to that resource usage chart and try to figure out what the deal is with Don Funk and why he's got an issue. So you just have to kind of scroll through until you see red and try to figure out why there is an issue for Don Funk going on. You can scroll back open and you can try to figure out where the actual problem is for him. So there's like no perfect solution. It's not going to like magically make all of your over allocations disappear. But when you do that resource leveling, you can take care of some problems using kind of those settings that we had. And that is lesson 6. So homework for this week is to take the lesson 6 quiz. And the Kahoot matches it pretty closely. So that'll be open after this. And then we have 6-2, which is the office remodel multiple pay rates. So in that particular exercise, there's an office remodel project you're managing, and you need to set up different pay rates for one of the resources. And he has different pay scales depending on whether he's moving furniture and appliances or doing painting and material installation work. So you're just going to kind of repeat the process of what we did for the multiple pay rates and make sure you enter those in. The next one is 6-4, which is specifying conference room availability. So this is a kind of interesting one because we talked about for specifying those times that something is available. I said 9 times out of 10 it's going to be a person. This is another really good example where we might have a resource that depends on availability, which would still be a work resource, even though it's a conference room. So for that one, we are going to have a conference room that's not going to be available for a certain period of time. So we have to figure out how to do that. So you're going to use the same procedure that we used for the example in class. Make sure that you do those 3 time hacks, just like we did when we went through that example with the electricians, going from NA to the day before the period starts when it's not available, then a time hack where it's the time that it's not available, and then go back from the day after that to infinity, NA, for its regular availability again. Is that all ringing a bell? Okay, and there's only one large conference room in that resource sheet. So what will the max units be when it's not available? What do you think?
Um,
I'm going to go back to our resource sheet, even though we don't have a large conference room on here. But remember, for the electricians, there's 3 of them, right? We have 300% max units. So during that time when one of them was gone, we went down to 200%. In the case of a resource where you only have one of them, like a large conference room, what would that look like?
that would be 100.
And then when it's not available, it'll be...
If it's not available, 0.
Right. And then it'll go back up to 100 for that one.
So there's never a half a conference room.
Yeah, I don't know why that's an option, to be honest. Yeah, that kind of cracks me up. You can put it for 50%, but that doesn't really make sense.
I'll just cut it in half.
Okay, and then project 6-6 is also on there, and it's a cost per use. And it's just the musicians have a travel and setup breakdown fee each time they are used. The sound editing studio has a $50 cleaning fee, and the video editing studio has a $50 cleaning fee. So you have to put 3 different cost per use sets of information into that one for project 6.6. And all your student files are in the student files folder. So those are right there for you for this week. And as a final fun assignment for this week, we have a kind of a more complicated, larger project with some of the skills that we've been working on. So it's called the garage build, and it's this instruction sheet. And I just want to walk through some things on here for you. And there's a starting document right here in project that you're going to use for it also. Okay, so here's our scenario. You've decided to build a garage as a separate structure to your house. A friend used Microsoft Project for a similar project and has allowed you to use that file. So that's what you have, that garage build file. When you open the file, you notice that there's several errors in the project, such as overallocation, types of relationships, calendar, length of project, and resource assignments. So we're going to go through and kind of fix up the file. So you're just going to go to, where am I? Open up that garage build project. And you can see there's a whole bunch of overallocations and things like that. So your friend kind of messed it up. So the current start date for the project is the 24th of March, 2014. You're going to go in there and set a new project start date of May 16th. And then you're going to set all the current project tasks to auto schedule, so that's easy. And then you're going to set the work hours for the project with some exceptions in there as well. Now, you need an additional phase between the construction plans and the construction phase for ground preparation. So if you look at that file, there is construction plans where you're doing drawings, specifications, contracts, permits, and approvals. And then there's the construction phase of setting foundation, building the roof, and add windows. We need another summary task built in between these two. So it should go right between task 10 and task 11. You should start a new summary task. And then you need to add these additional tasks, marking utility lines, removing plants, and removing structures as needed as the 3 tasks under that ground preparation summary task. Does that make sense?
Okay, so that's gonna go underneath the construction in between determining the budget and construction plans, or the next one?
Between construction plans and construction phase.
Okay. Okay.
So if you think of these as 2 summary tasks, it'll go right between.
Okay.
Okay, so then we're going to go to the resource sheet view and replace where it says your name with your actual name. And then there's a lot of resource over allocations. So you're going to remove yourself as a resource on all summary tasks. Let me show you what I'm talking about here. If you go to the resource sheet, you're over allocated because there's nobody else working on it. So if you go to your task usage, you notice that for every single task, you have been assigned to it. And some of these are, you're actually assigned to a summary task, which doesn't make sense because we don't assign people to a summary task, right? It's just kind of a placeholder. So you're going to have to take yourself off of those. So you could just double click that. Sorry, you could go back to your Gantt chart, excuse me. And for all those summary tasks, you could just remove yourself like that, okay? Just for the summary tasks. Because when you think about it, it makes absolutely no sense that anybody is assigned to a summary task because it's just an organizational thing. There's no work being done. Okay. And then it says there's still over allocations that remain. And you notice that several tasks are not linked to other tasks. So there's a problem with the flow of this Gantt chart. And if you look at it and you look at the waterfall that you should have over here on the right-hand side, obviously design and budget needs to come before construction plans. But the way it's set up right now, like the design and budget is starting on the 24th and ending on the 1st of April, but then the construction plan summary task isn't where it's supposed to be, which is following that, right? It should all go in order. So we need to fix that. Each task should be finished before the next one can start. And doing this should fix the over allocations, because that's why you're over allocated, is because everything's happening at once. So we want to make sure that we structure this properly so that, for example, determine budget becomes the predecessor for drawings. Remember how to do that?
For the what?
Do you remember how to link these two tasks so that they're in a finish to start relationship?
Yes. Hang on, I know this.
There's a couple different ways you can do it.
Yep, and that's what I'm looking for here. You can just click on that itself. In the, what is that, the Gantt view on the right? You can just click on the little arrow, the waterfall, and then you click that and then you can switch it.
Well, here's the problem though. There is no waterfall between determining budget and the first start and the first step in construction plans, which is drawings.
We have to select the two that we want.
Yep, and then you have to do it in order. So select 5 first, control click, and add 7. And then, how do we link those two?
We go to the task.
Yep.
And we hit the link the selected tasks.
That is right. Ta-da! And now that's happening. So there are a bunch of manual tasks in here, so you'll want to fix that and make sure everything is in automatic scheduled mode first.
Yep.
Otherwise it's going to get all funky on you. But the other way that you could do that, I just clicked undo, is you could just go to the predecessor column for drawings and say like, okay, what's the task that needs to come before this? Look up and see that it's task number 5, determine budget, and you could just tap 5 and then it'll do that as well. But all these aren't behaving because they're all set for manually scheduled. So you have to go back and make sure that they're all auto scheduled so that they behave properly first. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is kind of a big project, but you've done everything in here. It's just you have to kind of think through it. Okay. So once we fix all of that, so by that time, all of your tasks should be finished before the next one can start. You'll have that additional summary task in there, so you'll have to make sure that those are all scheduled properly and that those are all in a finish to start relationship within that new summary task that you built as well. And then you're going to add a work resource named General Contractor. So you're hiring somebody, and then you're going to do a third resource of General Labor. And this is going to be 2 laborers that are available. So make sure to represent that in the resource. So this is quite a bit. So I would like you to go up to step I, and I'll put that in the instructions. And then we'll maybe walk through it next week and go through the rest of it and practice the additional skills in there.
Sounds good.
Okay. So I'm going to add that right now, because I don't want you guys to get overwhelmed. Oops. There we go. Okay. All right, so that's lesson 6. Any questions?
No, I don't think so.
All right. Well, I will be 100% virtual next week again. So I will hopefully see you same bat time, same bat channel. And I'm opening the quiz now. Okay.
Perfect.
Let me know if you have any questions.
Alrighty.
Was I not recording? Oh, it is.